Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I'm Will. I'm joined by my co-host over here, the Grease. Say hello, Grease.
Hey, Will. I'm just trying to tell everybody that we're live.
Yeah, we Grease, as per usual. He and I are always like 2 steps behind where we should be when going live. So he's letting some folks know that should know that we're live in like the Facebook groups and all that. And I, as you notice, I'm wearing like old school. I feel like I'm Dr. Fraser Crane going live with my giant headphones on.
Who is that?
Well,
Dr.
and you say you're a child of the 90s.
Oh, Fraser.
Yeah.
See, you can't say Dr. Fraser. As soon as
that's
somebody
literally
says
his
doctor,
title.
I know, but as soon as somebody says
check out.
doctor or dentist or like
You're out.
CPA or something, I'm out.
I love that doctor, dentist, and CPA are all in the same book for you.
Yeah,
They all cause you pain.
No, they're fancier than I am, and I get upset about
very
it.
true. That's very true. They have letters after their name and before their name.
Yeah, and some of you people didn't stand at recess like I did, and that's because they became doctors and dentists and CPAs.
Stand at recess. What does that mean?
I mean, what are you when you got back in the day before we were all crunchy with our kids?
Okay.
And we like, no, they need to get their energy out. They need recess. Let that be the last thing you take away. It's now back then it was the first thing you took away. Like if you had to take your apple off, if you took your apple off the tree. It means you literally, the teacher's bench is right there.
You stood in the corner.
No, you stood there right there in front of the swings and the slides and everything, and you're just watching everybody have a good old time, and you're over there looking like daggum Magoo.
All right, there you go, folks. That's Grease still has to stand at recess, I think, as well. So we this is a Drinkin' With episode, so we have a wonderful guest tonight. We have Stefanie Bair from Barrell Bourbon. And we're going to bring her on now to have a nice little conversation. Stefanie, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Drinkin' With. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm great. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So we were sent by the lovely folks with Stellum, the Stellum brands, which we're going to get into some of, what's the difference between Barrell and what's the difference between Stellum and all that as we get along. But you sent us some Stellum Rye and some Stellum Bourbon that we're going to get into here in a second. But first, just go ahead and introduce yourself and who you are and what you do with the Barrell Bourbon Company.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am based in Denver, Colorado. I've been out here for just about 3 years. I am the director of sales for the West region of the U.S. So I manage sort of everything west of the Mississippi and also weirdly Michigan, just because it's one of those states that, I don't know, it just
they just kind of march to be their own drummer, I guess.
Yeah. I just wound up with me somehow. So I go over to Michigan a little bit and and then I travel around the country every now and then for sort of like bigger whiskey festivals and things. I was just in Nashville this past week at the Nashville Whiskey Festival. So if anybody that's tuning in was at that festival, that was me at the booth.
Awesome. So we
west of the Mississippi, though, is cheaper. Some people like to.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
Like
you got to add like $10. They're like, Mississippi. You got to add like $10. It's like Canadian and American.
Well, one thing I wanted to get to before we start talking about these whiskeys that we're going to pour up here in a minute, but this is something I've always found fascinating with Barrell specifically, is that to me, Barrell was one of the first modern iterations of bourbon that really was doing a small batch in a way that wasn't just a marketing term. That each batch of barrel bourbon that was coming out, or barrel rye or barrel whiskey, was all specifically meant to be different, as opposed to you get a small batch whiskey of anything on the shelf. You're getting something that is specifically meant to be the same as every other bottle you've picked up. What's different about the whiskey that you represent as opposed to other things that maybe come in batches?
Yeah, of course. When you say the whiskey I represent, do you mean about the barrel bourbon batches, or about Stellum and how it's different from barrel?
Well, I want to get into Stellum as well. So,
Okay.
but I wanted to lead off with what probably more people familiar with at this point are the fact that Barrell puts out a batch, and we're up to in the 30s or whatever numbers we get up to, that each one is going to be uniquely different because it is blended into be its own unique whiskey per batch, instead of being something that's homogenized and meant to be almost a commodity when you walk into a store.
Yes, absolutely. So I will say, I could be wrong. It may have changed in the last year or two, but as far as I'm aware, there is no legal definition for what exactly constitutes a small batch bourbon or rye in the U.S. Typically, it's a phrase that's used by producers who create their products in a certain batch size, but they're making the same thing every time that they make it. It's just that it's being blended or bottled at a smaller proportion, every time that they do it. With barrel craft spirits, the word batch and small batch for us means that and you can see all of them sort of behind me, not all of them, but a good helping of them behind me, is that we make these limited edition batches of bourbon, and every batch is intentionally unique. So it's totally different from all of the batches that came before it. There's no regard to any sort of continuity for flavor profile or ingredient. It's all about what's the most interesting bourbon that we can make at any given time with the inventory of barrels that we have. And then we release it once. It's usually available in the market for maybe 3-4 months. It depends where you are in the country. And then once it sells out, we replace it with the next batch, which is totally unique to the previous one. And it will never come back. It's never reproduced or recreated.
So then that leads to the natural progression of Stellum. Now we have Stellum that we tried when it first hit with just the standard Stellum bourbon, standard Stellum rye. There are special blends as well that come with that. But what makes Stellum a little bit different than the traditional barrel bourbon or barrel rye that you would see on the shelf?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is Stellum is blended with intent to be the same way every time that we make it. And it's intentionally blended with to be the best version of a classic American bourbon or classic American rye flavor profile. So with Barrell, my tagline that I always kind of say in like GSMs and tastings is that the only continuity within barrel bourbon is that there is no continuity in terms of ingredients and flavors. With Stellum, it's intentionally blended to harness what we think of as traditional American bourbon and traditional American rye flavor profiles, and it's made the same way every time, so that every bottling is always the same as the previous bottlings that came before it, and it's meant to be sort of your go-to bourbon or rye, that you reach for every day.
Yeah. So it almost in terms of releases, the barrel products are more like a limited edition. And the Stellum, you can reach for it and you know what you're going to get because it has the characteristics that you'll be familiar with if you've had it before, or if you're just familiar with the spirits world in general within that flavor profile. But now we've got in front of us another layer to that. Tell us, this first one we have is Equinox #1 Stellum Bourbon. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so when we launched Stellum as a brand, we started it with just Stellum Bourbon Original and Stellum Rye Original. And the idea was, what we just said, your best version of classic American flavor profiles. Around the holidays, we were looking at doing some kind of interesting limited release of Stellum. And we had access to all of these older bourbon and older rye barrels. And so older bourbon and rye barrels are interesting. They of course have a different flavor profile. They're usually a different proof than younger barrels. And they kind of harness, a totally different sort of a drinking style. They are also a lot harder to get a hold of. There is not as nearly as much 10 to 16-year-old bourbon and rye laying down as there is, 4 to 7-year-old bourbon and rye laying down.
Right.
And so our idea was to create a blend that focused on a particular aspect of the original product that we really liked, and use a very intentional group of barrels to harness that flavor profile and then expand upon it. So when you're thinking about Stellum Bourbon Original and you think about what's a classic American bourbon flavor profile, you think of your traditional vanilla and marshmallow and honey and ginger and fruit, right? Like your round, rich, kind of juicy fruits. That idea of that like really juicy, rich, fruit-forward bourbon was what we took to make Stellum Black Bourbon Equinox #1. And so the idea here is we focused on a group of just 50 barrels that all had really rich tropical fruit flavor profiles, and then built a blend around that still utilized barrels that were in original Stellum bourbon. So there is some continuity there, but that brought the flavor profile in a different direction.
It's delicious.
It is delicious.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
I had one sip and you can taste it for days.
Well, it's wild because like I'm getting like floral notes on the nose, then I get like pure vanilla on my palate, but then the finish is legit like it's just ripe dark fruit.
I was about to say the fruit that she was talking about as she was saying it. I was just sitting there. I'm like, yeah, every single one of these things you're saying. And I have been a fan of the Stellum Bourbon and Rye. Just a standard iteration. I think it's fantastic. I think it's priced perfectly for a quality bourbon or rye that's going to be on the shelf that you can go pick up, and it's going to hit all the metrics, but it's not going to set you back, an enormous amount that you can easily do in this market.
Right.
But now you turn to something like this that, like you said, you're getting the flavor profile you've already kind of established in those two products, but takes it to a completely different level.
Yeah, I want to side by side this Barrel Gold bourbon.
Well, I think that those are going to be completely different profiles.
She already said that, Will.
Yeah, I think the whole point of it is that those are supposed to be completely different products.
Well, I know, but like,
I will say it's always fun to side by side things from different portfolios, be it Barrell and Stellum or Barrell and your other favorite bourbon brands. It's always cool seeing,
not to be mentioned here.
You've got some of them behind you.
Some other favorites. We're not gonna project on anybody.
So how many different iterations of these limited products are you planning on doing? Is this going to be one a year? Is it multiple a year? I know that I've seen different ones, obviously not named Equinox, but I've already seen a couple that have come out. But what is kind of the plan and goal for under the Stellum brand to have the different limited releases?
Yeah. So I don't know that we have a set, well, I do know we don't have a set number of limited releases that we're like intent on planning on making. It's a lot more influenced by what groups of barrels do we have access to that are components of original Stellum Bourbon or original Stellum Rye that we think will work well in a limited edition blend. But I will say Equinox and Fibonacci, which is the next one that we're trying to jump ahead, are available now. And then we have two more that we just got COLA approval for a couple of weeks ago. There's one called Hunter's Moon, and then there's another one called the Lone Cypress.
Are those also one bourbon, one rye?
Yeah, so the Hunter's Moon is the bourbon. Yeah, exactly. And they'll be released probably around Thanksgiving, I think is probably a safe bet to say, depending on where you are in the country, but mid to end of November.
They're limited in the fact that they're one iteration, they're one-offs, but a lot of times, obviously in this market, it's people can get frustrated. Can I get my hands on something that is limited? Is this going to be a product that our watchers and viewers and listeners will be able to hopefully happen upon, or is it so limited that it will be select markets and you better throw up a prayer to try to find one?
Great question.
Yeah. That is a great question. You hate selling something to somebody and then having them tell you they can't find it. It's, right. As a salesperson, that drives me nuts. I would say these are going to be pretty well available. They are allocated. We only made a certain amount of them. Right. With Fibonacci and Equinox, there's less than 10,000 bottles produced of each of those. So generally what we do when we have an allocated item like this is we offer a certain amount to our distributor in each state, and then they take their allocation or they don't. I have really never seen a situation where a distributor doesn't take the entirety of their allocation. But what really I think it comes down to is on the ground level, does your local store that you're shopping at know that this product is in market? And are they, do they know how to order it? Are they interested in buying it? Do they know that people are interested in tasting it and buying it from them and bringing it home? That's really what influences whether or not you can find these products in store, a lot more often than whether or not they're available for the store to buy. who is coming in off the ground and saying, hey, so-and-so at Joe's Liquor, I really want to buy Stellum Fibonacci. I don't see it on your shelf. Can you bring it in for me? And then they go, oh yeah, I don't know why I don't have that. And then they go order it from the distributor.
What is SRP on these? I know obviously once it leaves your hands, it's out of your hands. But so I'll give you that caveat that once it ends up in the store, it's not your fault if it's a little bit different. But what's kind of the range that people should be thinking about if they're interested in these products?
I think about $100 a bottle. Our MSRP officially is $99.99. But that does change a few bucks here and there depending where you are.
Yeah. And I think, based
I
off
love
of
that psychological penny every time. Every time. I ain't spending $100, but I'll spend $99.99.
The best part about it, Grease, is that you do get tripped up by that every time.
What are you talking about? No, it's the 98's what I get tripped up on.
Oh, and I think that's when it's on clearance in some stores. If it's got a different change thing, it's a code.
There's some stupid retailer that's 98 everything.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Will, have you already tried this, by the way?
The bourbon?
No, the rye.
No, I haven't moved onto the Fibonacci.
Hey, if you're watching this, I know we got the information out late, but y'all hit the thumbs up and subscribe and share this with your family and friends before Thanksgiving.
So that they can get their hands on some of
these. And then revisit it at Thanksgiving. You need a follow-up to remind these people.
For sure.
So just say it now and then follow up at Thanksgiving.
All right, let's move on to this rye. Tell us a little bit about what we're drinking here.
Will.
I know, because you get ahead of things, and that's why you have to stand at recess.
I had never heard that before, by the way.
I haven't either, but I also didn't get in trouble as much as he did as a kid. So.
Oh, I got
it. Stellum Rye Fibonacci is I love it. I don't know about you guys, if you're bourbon, if you prefer bourbon or you prefer rye, if you had your druthers, which one you do. For me, it's rye, which is funny because I work for a company that produces a ton of bourbon. But we make some pretty good rye.
Yeah.
And Fibonacci is probably one of my favorite things that we've produced. Are you guys familiar with what the Fibonacci sequence is?
I know that it has to do with mathematics, and Grease has never heard of Fibonacci in his life.
Okay, well,
I was going to say like the Pythagorean theorem or something like that.
Hey, that's a pretty. Yeah. I mean, they both are in the same discipline. So
what does that mean? A proof?
Huh?
Like a proof of
the Pythagorean theorem?
I don't know. I don't remember what that was.
I remember a triangle.
Yeah, I think it's how you find out the long side of the triangle.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was just all the degrees would be.
It's this side squared plus this side squared is equal to this side squared. But that's not what we're talking about. This isn't Fibonacci.
I know. I'm sorry.
Well, okay, but
derailed.
Being in the same discipline of old school mathematics, the Fibonacci sequence is a mathematical sequence where the sum of each number is the sum of the two previous numbers. So it's laid out as a sequence. It goes 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, so on and so forth.
A lot of times in the newspaper, if there's one of those puzzles, look for a sequence like that.
Oh, you add the number that came before.
Like, I've not picked up a newspaper ever.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
1,
do they even make
1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13.
Yes, nailed it.
I know how to do it.
You're good. You got it.
Golly, both of y'all had doubts.
Adam Shelton, with the comment of the night, says, "Oh, this is great content."
Well, no, Adam Shelton. So Adam also said, "Need more seagrass and dovetail." Then All View Liquors said 20 plus seagrass was amazing. Not a fan of the Barrell Gold Bourbon, which okay. Sure.
Yeah. That guy's rich.
Then TNT were dynamite. I met Stefanie recently in Wisconsin at the distillery.
At the distillery. The distillery.
At the distillery, and she signed my bottles.
Distillery, that's like a bar.
Oh, that's so cool. Hi guys.
That's a bar?
It is a bar. It's a huge bar in Wisconsin, and they are like one of our biggest Barrell and Stellum accounts. And we did a big Stellum happy hour there, and I was autographing bottles and
that's really cool.
Drinking a bunch of stuff. We should do a podcast where we just get drunk and try to figure out math. I feel like that would be.
Yeah, it's a really niche market. Like, 4 of our people are into that.
To the podcast. All I've been doing for 6 years, Stefanie. So I've just been getting drunk and talking about math. Now, sometimes sometimes I throw in like IRS in there when I'm talking about math.
Well,
Why
that's
just-
typically where the source of your math problems come from.
It's so funny that we're bringing this up because when I talk about Stellum Fibonacci with people, I always have to explain what the sequence is. And then I usually follow up with some kind of joke about how I majored in journalism and Spanish in college. And my dad, who is a mechanical engineering manager, was really bummed out about that. And so anytime that I have to like talk about math with people, I'm always like, sorry, Dad, like as a joke. And I think my dad is watching right now. It's his birthday and he wanted to watch the podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday, Dad.
Cheers. Cheers.
All right, well,
Cheers,
which
Dad.
one are we doing? The beer or the rye?
The rye, because
Okay.
rye is her jam.
Yeah, so let me tell you guys about it. So the Fibonacci, let's go back to this. So the Fibonacci sequence, we got that out of the way. So this is a sequence that exists in nature and it's found in plants and animals. It's found
Like
probably
Nautilus, right?
Yeah,
like Nautilus does the diameter goes out in a Fibonacci sequence.
Exactly. So it's like a really efficient layering pattern of protection around a center core. And so for animals, it's like scales or shells that cover, their skin and their flesh from predators. And in plants, it's layers of protection of whatever, like a pine cone, for example, that covers the core of the seeds. And so it's a very effective pattern, but it's also a very stunning, visually pleasing pattern. And for that reason, it's been picked up by humans in art and in architecture to create structurally sound and very beautiful, attractive like pieces of art. The most famous example of it is the Mona Lisa was painted in the Fibonacci sequence. It's also called the golden ratio. So those terms are interchangeable. And so when we were thinking about innovating in whiskey making and kind of what that looks like, what the next step is, it was only natural that we would look at a pattern that had already been adopted by humans from nature and applied to art and architecture, and then figure out how to apply it to whiskey making. So what we did was we took 6 different groups of rye barrels. Some of them are components of the original Stellum Rye. Some of them are different older components of, more limited edition, more allocated older ryes. And we blended those 6 groups of barrels together in the Fibonacci sequence by volume to create.
Okay. Now I'm going to nerd out on this. I mean, that's a really cool way to blend it. That's awesome. That was awesome.
I have no idea what she said after the fact that it was her dad's birthday. I literally have no idea. Tell me why it's cool.
It's just
I believe it.
Because like how we were saying that the Fibonacci sequence is a naturally occurring thing in nature, in art, and that it's known that it creates both structurally strong things. It creates aesthetically pleasing art. They decided to use the ratios from their barrels to create a whiskey based on the ratios of the whiskey in it. They built upon it in that way.
Correct.
Is that I catch on right?
Perfectly,
That's awesome.
perfectly summed up.
That is an awesome thing to do.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. And I think it results in, it's as far as I'm aware, we're the first people to do that. I don't think that that's a method that's really been adopted by anybody else yet.
I haven't heard it before.
Yeah, me neither. So I'm going to go with it. And then
I would have definitely
really
locked onto that if I'd have heard it before. Like I would know if it existed.
You barely locked onto it when she explained it the first time you've ever heard it.
Listen,
so I don't believe that you would have carried that forward for more than 5 minutes.
I will be the first time I heard the word Fibonacci is tonight.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and tell you something. I would not have pronounced it that way.
How would you pronounce it?
Fibonacci.
Okay, I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Italian's not your jam, though.
Fibonacci.
Yeah. Yeah. Typically, when you start trying to do accents, that's when we cut you off. You are
That
done.
was great with the gabagool. Yeah.
Look at you.
What's the gabagool?
I don't know. I think Stefanie needs to come back because she knows how to like put the bear over here.
There's obviously 2 educated people in the building.
I don't think gabagool is real. I think it's like a made up word that
Yeah.
people use when they're talking about Italian.
Oh, like Baba Booey
sure.
on Howard Stern?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm into that.
We'll allow it.
All right, let's talk about the rye really quick.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a big rye.
Yeah.
How old is this rye?
So it's a blend of ryes between 4 and 10 years old, just like Stellum Rye original.
Going
just has a heavier
up, though,
focus on
with
older.
a different ratio.
Yeah.
Because of
Go ahead.
Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah.
I think it's just really savory. It has like this really, I love finding black tea notes in whiskey. I love a good tea. I get a really strong tea note on this. I get a lot of like sage and like bay leaf, like those savory, like stewy kind of like flavors. I love those in an herb. There's some really good rich honey on it.
And the fact that it, well, you said it has
I'm salivating right here. It's basically like a freaking fire station that somebody made the water come out of
this
the truck.
analogy is not going to land.
I was searching for it.
Yeah, and it didn't get there. But what I think, when I get the tea note, especially with rye, when it has more age on it, when it's had a lot more contact with the barrel, a lot more interaction with it, and even though it's a blend and has some of the 4-year rye, which 4-year rye, I love a good 4-year rye. So there's no, but with that, I'm going to get more spearmint. I'm going to get some more grassy notes, some of in the younger rye. But like you said, with the tea note, you definitely know there's mature whiskey in there.
This is sticky on the finish.
Yeah. In a good way.
In an incredible way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably my favorite.
Sticky is an adjective that can be used both positive and negative. So you have to.
Oh, 100%. No, it's in a good way.
Like my children,
in a good
honey,
way.
They're sticky. That's not a good thing.
Oh,
no,
yeah,
that is they have had suckers and maple syrup, and I need to run an errand so that they can have a bath.
Someone got into the Nutella.
Yeah.
It's bad stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff doesn't come off, by the way.
Nutella of what?
Like you literally have to scald whatever you're scald.
I hope you're not scalding your children.
No, I don't do that.
Well, you said it doesn't come off.
Well, I scold them.
Oh, well, that's a different word.
Hey, get in here.
Fibonacci.
Hey, Fibonacci. No, Fibonacci.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it was. Fibonacci.
Stephanie's like, who sign me up?
I love it. I'm having the best time.
So Stephanie, here's the deal. Okay. Yeah. A lot of limited release stuff comes out. It's hard to get lower numbers. It's $100, whatever. I will be completely honest with you. This is a buy all day long at $100. These are super complex. They go all over. Like the bourbon is just all like it, but not out of like it's not balanced.
Yeah,
it's balanced, but it's just like, how am I going from here to here and then back in here, and then both finishes shine for me on both of these products. You've got that dark fruit that I mentioned. That's just bold and it just creates this waterfall back there. But then this thing being sticky on it's
in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. So the rye, a little spice at it or whatever. But like I think what Will kind of alluded to is like there's also that sweetness there, and that to me goes from like, because I'm smelling it and it's spicy. I'm kind of getting some cinnamon stuff on it, possibly a little minty. The palate, pretty great. Rye, it hits you like it's like, man, this is rye, and then that finish turns sweet, and then it just sticks.
Well, and
it lasts for about 2 minutes.
It's starting to get cooler here. Where you are in Colorado, I'm sure you're already enjoying fallness.
Yeah.
That rye for this season is sit on the back porch and drink that rye and just have some friends over with a fire pit or something. And that is what I would drink that all night long.
Black tea. I totally get it, Stephanie.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things.
After the oiliness and the stickiness kind of dissolves a little bit, black tea for me, 100%. Now, we have never I'm really glad we had everything positive to say about this.
Yeah, me too.
Glad too. Yeah, typically you want to try it a little bit before. Just
right. We didn't do that, Stephanie. We normally we're like, take a sip. Just please God have something good to say about it, Lord, sweet baby. We didn't. These were fresh cracks. We took a gamble on a live. And I mean,
so glad it worked out.
Yeah,
I will be in private threads tonight, and I will back up my stance.
Everything you said.
If you find these at $100, doesn't matter which one, you buy them.
Yeah,
don't buy all of them. Like leave some for people.
So I had a question that you mentioned you were in Nashville and the Women of Whiskey event that you went to here. One thing that we are super thrilled to see is events like that starting to grow in different markets and where they go from there. We had why are you laughing?
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing. I saw something that made me laugh.
All right.
I tried to hold it in.
You're not good at
Was
that.
it me? Did something happen that I missed?
No,
Did
it's
my
in the
cat,
chat.
jump up
They're
there?
saying,
Okay.
why hasn't anybody brought up that Stellum spelled backwards is mullets?
Constantly.
Oh, okay.
Constantly. Oh,
She's
yeah,
like,
that is not
that's
news.
a-
we know.
that-
Okay, well, I didn't think about it, but words aren't my thing. Sorry, go ahead, Will.
I was going to say, oh, go ahead, Stephanie.
No, oh, sorry. I was going to say we did have one group very early on when we launched Stellum last spring that did a barrel pick, and then their like tater sticker that they put on the back was mullets, and then it was like famous people with mullets on the tater sticker.
Yeah,
And so we caught wind of that.
it's pretty funny though. It is funny. It's
Yes, yes. Did you have something to say? Or
good. Me, the
Like, which
serious
one's your-
thing I was going to.
yeah.
That you okay?
No, I tried to hold it in. Then you.
No, it's fine. I was going to say we've one thing we've loved to see is that we put on an annual event called Whiskey Weekend, and the very first year, out of 30 people, we had 4 women attend, and they were very gracious to put up with this guy for a whole weekend. And then the next year we had about 10 out of 60. And then the next year we probably had 25 out of 100. And then last year we were close to 40,
60.
we had 60 people in our group of just shy of 200. So what we've seen is the interest in a historically, for right or wrong, male dominated industry of women, not just within the industry being public facing parts of brands, which is a great thing as well, but the desire for women to go to the events, to go to the whiskey weekends, to go to the special events in Nashville. But I also love that they're doing women exclusive events, because I think that is when you start to get camaraderie and build a force within an industry that desperately needs it. I just kind of wanted to get your take on what you saw when you went to that event and what you see as you travel the country representing a brand.
Well, I think to take the first part of your question, that event in particular, that was really cool to be a part of and to witness, because I've been in this industry I've been a salesperson for about 7 years. I've been in hospitality, if you really want to go all the way back, since I was 14, because it was my first job. And I don't think, when I started bartending like 12 years ago in Manhattan, it really wasn't all that common to see a lot of women, but the women that you did see made themselves known. Like they were like, we're here, we're loud, we're making a difference. Like we're showing up, we're opening doors for people. That's kind of the point. And I think anytime that you see a group of people that has historically not been represented in anything start to gain recognition for the work, not that they're starting to do, but that they've already been doing, that other people have paved the way for them to do.
Sure.
It's really inspiring. And certainly, I think a lot of women in the industry encounter similar challenges. I will say, it totally depends where you are in the country and what type of event you're doing and who your audience is, because that changes greatly. There are some markets that are really used to seeing women run big ticket whiskey events, and there are some that aren't. And there's challenges that come with both of those things. But I think we're only Lisa Wicker, who works at Widow Jane, doesn't work at, but is Widow Jane.
Right.
She made a really interesting comment where she said, we're just representing people that have already existed for 40, 50 years, but never got this platform. And I think that's really important. I do think there's more and more women joining the industry, but I don't think it's new that women are in the industry, but I think it's new that they're getting recognized for their work in the industry. And that's an important distinction to make, because otherwise I think that you discount the path that was set for you.
Right.
If I was coming into this 10 years ago and there hadn't been a history for 40 or 50 years of women doing good work in the industry, it would have been much harder for me to be where I am now, which is just a fact, right? So you have to pay homage to that. I think that as we continue to evolve as an industry, we're only going to continue to see more people coming into these events, more people showing up. I'm starting to see more and more women approach my tables at these things and say to me, I've always been interested in whiskey, but I was nervous to get into it because I felt like it was such a male dominated world and I didn't want to sound stupid or I was intimidated. How did you get started? They ask for advice. They ask for like events they should attend. They tell me they're interested in like getting jobs working, as tasters, not because they like need extra cash, because they want to like learn more about whiskey and then they want to like find a job like what I do in the industry. I would say 9 out of 10 events that I do, I get at least one woman that comes up and does that. And it's just really, really cool to see. And so I think we're only going to continue to see more people get added.
Yeah, Mama Marcia, who was one of the original women at Whiskey Weekend, she said, great numbers on the rise.
That's right. She came from California to our very first Whiskey Weekend, one of the 4 that were there. And it was, she had a great time. 5, actually. There were 5 total. But it was a great, fantastic time. And we had a great, I just love
details are always fuzzy at Whiskey Weekend.
Yeah.
That's
Touche.
true.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing that and what you've seen as well, because I like I said, I love to see when those events get attention as well, because I think it's also good to see some FOMO from our side of like, that event looks awesome. And knowing like the having something exclusive for a underrepresented consumer base, I think as well, is really important if we want to continue to keep getting good whiskey in the marketplace, because one thing I know for sure is that women have better palates than men as well. And that is one thing
that is scientifically true. Yeah,
exactly. So if we want to continue to get better and more product, I think that it's important that we don't shy away from elevating those voices. So
yeah, thank you for saying that. That's nice to hear.
Well, now that I've talked the mood down, Grease, you have any other
what are you drinking right now, Stefanie? Were you just drinking with like what we were drinking?
I actually I did have a little bit of it earlier, but my most recent one that I cracked open was Stellum Black Rye, the iteration that came before Fibonacci.
Oh, gotcha.
I still have a bottle of this left at home, and it's like, again, I love rye, so this is one of my favorite things to pour, but I don't allow myself it that often because it's my last bottle of it.
It would go way too quickly if you did.
Exactly.
I know that issue.
Do you have a favorite barrel batch?
I do. Barrel batch 27 is my favorite. Did you guys try that one out of curiosity?
I don't know specifically
there's
all
so many.
the batches I've had.
Unless it's like named. I don't know. Like Dovetail, Seagrass.
As we learned earlier, numbers aren't really his thing.
No.
So
I'm
They're
like,
not my thing either, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, it was 27. I don't know, man. Okay, so that was 9 times 3. Okay. I don't remember what it was.
I did that for a minute.
What about 27 do you love?
Okay, so I think a lot of like what you really like to and enjoy to eat and drink relies on the memories that are triggered for you when you have that particular product. And I grew up, I mentioned I've been in hospitality in some way, shape, or form since I was 14. That's the legal age to work in New Hampshire with parental consent. And so my dad, if you're still on, he signed the form and he was like, no more allowance,
Dad.
go get a job. And so I was like, all right. And so I worked at this place called the Black Forest Cafe and Bakery in Amherst, New Hampshire. And it was a like brunch, lunch restaurant, but then a really beautiful bakery attached to it. And in the summer, we used to make these amazing like berry pies that we would sell for dessert, by the slice in the restaurant and then buy the pie in the bakery. And I used to, because I was 14 and didn't get how it worked with margins and things, I would help myself to slices of pie like all the time and go run and hide in like the bus station and like scarf it down really fast when no one could see me. And then I'd go back out and like work and like wipe the crumbs off my face and like do what I had to do. And my favorite pie that we made was like this summer berry pie. And it was all dark berries. It was blackberry and cherry and like blueberry. And it was, I could have had, I ate so much summer berry pie. And I really like batch 27 because the first thing that you notice when you drink it is cooked cherry. It's like, boom, it's just like right up front. It's like a huge bomb in your face. And that just brings me right back to like wearing that Black Forest apron with my white button up and my black slacks and hiding in the bus station, like scarfing down like half a pie or whatever, in between tables. And I just, for me, that really does it. Summers in New Hampshire.
Isn't that funny? Sometimes not even just sometimes, I would feel like for 90% of people, they can have the best tasting whiskeys in the world, but the top one is always linked to something like that.
Totally.
Some sort of childhood memory, some sort of flavor.
You were with?
Jason Newman, who's a big supporter of ours at Whiskey Weekend one year, had a sip of something he was drinking it blind. And the reason he loved it is that it reminded him of his grandma's purse because it had a spearmint note that was like not juicy fruit, the double mint gum that was in her purse, that it reminded him of that. And that was the note. And he loved it in the tasting, not because he's this advocate for Wrigley, that he's just like, man, if I can't get enough double mint gum, like it may not even be something that you've had in a long time, but it hits something in your brain that takes you back to a place, and you're like, I have to own this because it reminds me so much of this time and place. So
absolutely true.
I love it.
Natalie, which is Jason's wife, actually said, what are the notes on number 27? The only note we've heard so far is cooked cherry, bomb in your face. So I'm pretty sure Natalie is going to be ISOing that bottle.
Yeah.
Wait, does she like cherry?
Oh, no, she just, like, since it was your favorite and you said something and that note sounds incredible, like, there's no reason for Natalie to not go and get it.
Fair enough.
Natalie
she's like
has one of the best palates of anyone we've ever met. And
yes.
She's a very good friend.
She helped Dixon Deadman on his on tasting notes for batch 4 rye or 3 rye.
Several
3
releases. So.
Oh, it's so cool. I just met Dixon at Wisconsin Whiskey Festival last month. He came
solid
friend.
Dude.
Really nice
You should have told him to respond to my text message, but it's fine.
Okay, I'll let him know.
If you see him next time, just be like, Grease from the podcast said, seriously, just text it back. It's fine.
The reason it bounces back is because you are blocked. I don't know if you know this.
Ooh.
Well, I don't know if it's blocked, Stefanie. Don't go oohing and on real quick. I don't know if it's blocked or if I had. He used to have 2 phones.
He just canceled service on the one.
Yeah, I might have had the wrong phone.
That's all good.
All right, so barrel batch number 27.
Batch 27.
I dig
that's
that.
a little hot tip. Yeah.
Okay. So obviously, Barrell and Stellum wheelhouse. Is there a favorite whiskey outside of those brands that you've liked?
Yeah. Well, as you can see, I have a pretty good lineup of Balvenie above me.
So
I don't know
Scotch.
if that's cut off.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to work for William Grant before I worked for this job. And I had always really liked the Balvenie because the 14-year Caribbean cask really just was I remember drinking it years ago and being like, oh my God, this is one of the coolest things I've ever had. This is so interesting. And it unlocked a world of Scotch for me that I hadn't been familiar with before, working at a primarily American whiskey-focused bar. Working for the company, I got the chance to meet David Stewart and do an event with him and sit down and have dinner with him one-on-one afterwards. And I just thought he was the nicest guy. So again, this goes back to like a person or a place, right? And I just thought he was like the nicest guy. He was so genuine. And I just really, really enjoyed his company. And, of course the Scotch is amazing. And so I'm always gonna have it.
Stefanie, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Like her palate is crazy.
Yeah.
Like
So
I love it.
Top Dog here, who is watching us, says, I did the pick this weekend with Stefanie at Nashville Whiskey Fest. So much fun.
Oh, great.
I love when we have people on here that are intertwining, whether it be in Wisconsin or specifically did the pick here in Nashville. That's very cool.
Top Dog.
Did you just said, I love that we have people on here that like whiskey?
Yeah.
You're sweet.
I know.
You're sweet. Chris.
But I'm just wondering about Top Dog. Why don't you come here and pick a bottle to drink? Like, why does he? I mean, does he live in Nashville?
I don't know. I think you're can't see the forest for the trees with this one. I was just pointing out that he was at the pick, or he or she.
Yeah, he was.
I don't know Top Dog.
Yeah, Top Dog
personally.
Yeah.
But, all right.
Did you want to tell Top Dog the barrel that won the selection because they got to taste 3 was number 3, the highest proof barrel.
Number 3 won.
That was the one that won.
Very cool.
I like high proof.
So how is that released? Do people have a access point to go purchase that from there, or is it just going to distributors?
It's going to Cork Dorks in Tennessee.
Yep.
So Paul will buy it. It hasn't been bottled yet. It'll probably be available to purchase from the store in about 6 weeks or so.
Very cool.
Nice. Man, that's a good turnaround.
Yeah, that is one of our very nimble points, I will say, with our barrel program is we have a very consistent bottling line that makes sure that we get our product out pretty quickly. So we're still selling barrels right now that'll be delivered by Christmas.
Wow.
Awesome.
That's great.
That is great.
Mhm.
Well, Stefanie, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, Drinkin' With. Thank you for the samples. These were fantastic. Both Equinox #1 and Fibonacci #1. Will there be #2 of those?
So the line for this is there may be. We left the option open to do a Fibonacci #2 or an Equinox #2. It's like in a movie where it just ends and you're not sure if the main character died or not, so they can release a sequel if they want to later. That's kind of the vibe with those two. Hunter's Moon and Lone Cypress are the next two that are coming out again around Thanksgiving, Christmas time. We may do an Equinox #2 or Fibonacci #2 in the future, so keep your eyes peeled.
These are great. Everyone should go find them. And
Cypress
check
Moon
it
and
out.
Hunter's Moon and
The Lone Cypress.
Lone Cypress.
You're
Yeah.
great at this.
I mean, at least I didn't get any words wrong. At least all those words existed.
I don't know. Tell me how to say Fibonacci.
I mean, I know how to say it now. Fibonacci.
All right.
Crush it.
Stefanie, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to let you go, and thank you for spending time with us. We're going to read some of those super chats before we end, but
Awesome.
once again, hope you'll come back sometime.
Yes, Stefanie,
Thank you.
this was a blast, and
This was really fun.
you're in God's country over there in Denver. We just, I mean, especially in the summers, it just looks incredible out there. Maybe
Hey,
Just
anytime.
looks incredible.
well,
You
it
guys-
does
you
look
guys-
incredible.
Man,
in-
I've never been through there, nothing, but it looks great.
Well, it does.
I've heard
It
it's
does look good in
fantastic.
February. February just looks like a
Like you can go
apocalypse.
skiing. Yeah, I mean, like actually more people are traveling out there.
Yeah, well, they don't know what they're doing.
If you guys ever want to come ride, hit the slopes, go for a hike, drink some whiskey.
I'll be in Colorado
have my
this
info.
weekend, but
Okay.
just
Really?
flying. Yeah, well, I'll be in western part of the state going on a
Oh.
fishing trip. So
Oh, well, that'll be really fun.
yeah,
Hope you
looking
catch a
forward
lot.
to it.
Okay, taking a hike.
Thank you guys for
and
having me.
Drinking whiskey do not mix.
I disagree.
They do
but
not mix.
I also disagree. Yeah, no, they're great.
Chris doesn't like to exert
Yeah.
himself while drinking, which is fair, but
Well, no, I hate sweating out my buzz.
your buzz.
You got to have this is the move. You got to have a little 50 ml for a cheers at the top. Also, so you're not carrying all that weight with you up the mountain. And then when you get to the car, you pop the trunk.
Right.
You get the cold beer out of the cooler, and then you pull the 750 out.
Stefanie has done this a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pro
A
tips.
few times.
Yeah.
Guys.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much,
Thank
Stefanie.
you
We
for having me.
appreciate
Have a
this.
good time.
Appreciate y'all. It was a pleasure.
Thank you guys.
Take care.
Bye.
I accidentally just said thank you guys, and it was like Will was leaving.
Oh,
as
it's
well.
all good. I'm going to go through some of these
You
super
could
chats
just let
because
us-
we had super chats, but I didn't want to interrupt the conversation because that was wonderful.
Oh, for sure.
So we had
Oh, for
Andy
sure.
Payne that just said, "Drunken math is every episode." He's kind of not wrong.
I think he meant in every episode. Or no, he's
He
saying it
said
already
is.
was.
I think he's saying that we just get, well, especially if it's a barn night. If it's a barn night, that is actually the definition of drunken math.
Well,
So,
yeah, because you're putting letters in things and equating them to a number, essentially.
no, it's all numbers.
There's 25. There's 25. Wait, is there 25 letters in the alphabet? Or
Um,
26?
I'm going to let you count. You take a minute to yourself. Oh, this is from Jordan Ferguson. Happy birthday, Stefanie's dad. Thank you for the super chat, Jordan. And yeah, that is super cool. Happy birthday to Stefanie's dad. I hope that
26.
we could give him some chuckles on his birthday because it was funny to me at least. And then Drew Bolin with a very gracious
What are you doing?
super chat said, "Love you guys and love me some Barrel Craft Spirits. Cannot wait to do a barrel pick soon."
Oh, I thought you were talking about college football.
DCS,
Yeah.
buddy, that's been gone for a minute. But yeah, in hindsight, I think it got it right more often than the playoffs. But
Yeah.
only one thing: let's get Dickled down to less than 5%, and I'll pay way more for the product.
Yeah. I mean, they've had Dickel stuff in the barrel stuff. And here's
Yeah.
the deal. Some people love it.
I still
I do
have
not.
some Barrel Batch 8 that I really liked.
And it had
That's
some Dickel
years
in
ago.
it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it has some Tennessee whiskey in it for sure.
Got you.
Drew, thank you so much for that.
Dude,
And
Drew,
then-
you're very generous. We love you.
So we had a great batch of people on here tonight. That was a super fun episode. That was my favorite drinking with we've done. I think that
Stephanie's
was
cool as crap.
Yeah, she was great.
She's a cool hang, dude.
The whiskey was fantastic, and I feel like
Yes.
we got a lot of good knowledge out, but also, well, I mean, yeah, make a little Boo-Rah.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna take a little Equinox 1.
Now this was equal parts. Hey, do you want to do a blind?
A blind what?
I don't know.
I don't know what you mean. You're gonna kill me later, by the way. We're supposed to do a thing, and I didn't do the right thing.
Old Charter.
I
don't know what we're supposed to do.
For
this,
those
but
of
we're
you
supposed to do
listening,
something.
Grease just is holding up a bottle. He's not just saying the words
Old Charter. Yeah.
Hey, I was gonna say I was supposed to bring the Calumet 15, and I messed it up.
Did
again.
you seriously say?
I didn't even bring my headphones.
Why did you
notice.
say Calumet? Nobody says Calumet. Like literally,
I
no
think
one.
it actually may be that though, because it's like a French word.
It doesn't matter, dude. It's like speeding or not speeding on an interstate. As long as you're going with the flow, what are they going to do? Like if there's a group of 50 cars and they're all going 85, guess who's not getting pulled over? Nobody.
That's not accurate.
If you got people going 70 and one guy going 85 up the middle, that dude's screwed.
I'm going to start saying everything, if possible, as though it's a French word just to annoy you. Like,
Stellum.
Actually, I just want you to try to say things.
Stellum. Let me go ahead and hear best spoken. Now that's Hoboken. Where's that from? What country?
Hoboken, New Jersey.
Yeah, that's a different country.
Okay,
100%.
Not Hoboken, man.
Best spoken. Best spoken. Best spoken. Best spoken. Oh yeah, Spokane, Washington. Best Spokane.
Thank you so much for watching. Do you want to try to hit a solid hour on this, Grease? Do you want to go 8 more minutes? You just want to wrap it up and do an after party?
I want to do an after party so bad. We haven't done one in like 2 weeks.
So if you're
3 weeks.
if you're a podcast patron, what we do is an after party where after this we go hang out on a private feed and we recap the show, we tell some stories, we laugh a little bit.
We nightcap the show.
If any Patreon level, no matter what level you are, you get the after party. It's given to every level of patron. And so if you want to be a part of that, go ahead and join. It's almost every week we have the after party where we go live for a little bit. And you can join at patreon.com/thepodcast. If you're watching, it's like written right, like that's the podcast. That's how you spell it. THEPODCASK.
Yeah, it's also right here.
Patreon.com/thepodcast. That's how you can join and you can be a part of that. We had a virtual barn night slot open, and we did a virtual barn night the other night. Mike saw the opening, jumped into the spot, and joined with like 30 minutes left to go to the virtual barn night. But if
Will is talking like someone doesn't understand the internet.
If you're, I'm gonna punch you in the face as hard as I can.
I knew that one would rub me raw.
I do love the town hall level as well because it's similar to virtual barn night, but we get a lot of cast of characters in there. So join if you want to hang out with us on Zoom calls and drink too much whiskey too late into the night on a school night.
Yeah.
If that sounds like something you're interested in doing, hanging out with us directly, join that town hall level. You'll meet a bunch of brand new friends. You'll end up finding people that are podcast listeners and podcasters that live in areas you may be traveling to, and you'll end up going to a bar with them. That is one of the most common threads of people that are our patrons, is that they meet people that become really good friends and they end up hanging out with them in other cities, whether it be they didn't know that they lived in the same city as these people. We had 4 people on from Colorado the other night, or you just meet people and you're like, hey, I'm traveling to Philly this weekend. Anybody want to come hit up a bar with me? And it happens. That is probably the biggest intangible benefit to being a part of our Patreon is that we do have these in-person on the internet chats, and you end up meeting people and getting to know them better. And then you have a friend when you go to another city or a city of your own. So
and
check that out.
And
Town hall level.
And they're the first to hear about Whiskey Weekend Batch 5.
Oh yeah, because we're
first to be able to purchase tickets. And there's only 100 VIP tickets.
We're going to start selling tickets to Whiskey Weekend Batch 5 in like a week, maybe 2.
We should
two at the most.
Yeah, so we should launch.
Patreon members are getting first crack at it because there's
100% podcast Patreon. You're good.
And have we told people publicly where it's going to be?
I think so. I think a lot of people know Franklin, Tennessee.
Yeah, we're doing it in
just
Franklin,
south of Nashville.
It's going to be the homecoming batch. So if you're interested in going to Whiskey Weekend Batch 5, it's here, folks. We've got an incredible lineup that we're working on, and we have been already putting a lot of work into this. It's like reinventing the wheel because we're bringing it back home. We're taking it out of Kentucky. We're bringing it to Tennessee, and it's going to be bigger and better than ever. So if you want to get first access to that and to be the first to know, patreon.com/thepodcast is the easiest way to do it. Become a patron at any level, and you're going to find out about Whiskey Weekend first, even before we say it on a live or on a podcast. So check it out. Patreon.com/thepodcast. We appreciate it. If you want to join our barrel program, we just dropped 2 brand new barrels.
Oh, yeah.
Bangers. Hogback and 1792 full proof. Check them out.
Both are completely different whiskeys. The 1792 is oily, very well balanced.
OakenThieves.com. Yeah. Oh, Drew Boland said, I'm buying all 100 VIP tickets to sell for a profit later. I'm totally fine with that. You can flip those. I do not care. And if you can't sell them, totally fine with taking your money for all 100 tickets as well.
All right. Can we release a few details about the VIP tickets? Do we want? I feel like we need to say something.
No, they'll find out soon enough.
But
you know the best way they can find out? Becoming a patron. Patreon.com.
That's fair. We'll talk about it on the after show tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely we'll do that. All right, folks, we're going to do an after party. Love y'all. We don't know Jack,
but we'll drink it.
Bye.